Hello, whiskey freaks. Welcome back to the BeastMasters Club podcast. This episode was recorded live at our barrel premiere event with WhistlePig Master Distiller Dave Pickerell. The event was held on March 16th, or what we would call St. Paddy's Day Eve. The event was to debut our private barrel of WhistlePig 12-year Old World Rye. We picked a custom version of the WhistlePig Old World cask finishes. Our marriage of those finishes has 80% Madeira, 10% Sauterne, and 10% port. We think it really complements the spiciness of the rye really well. You can grab a bottle of our private WhistlePig barrel in the shop on our site at BeastMastersClub.com, and then get that bottle sent to you in the mail and listen along to this tasting event with Dave Pickerell so you can enjoy your drams as you listen along with us. Enough from me. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Cheers.
BeastMasters Club, experiencing the world's finest whiskey, one bottle at a time.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, welcome.
Started.
So this is BeastMasters WhistlePig Old World Edition, and we're super excited to have Dave Pickerell, Master Distiller with WhistlePig, here with us tonight.
Well, it's good to be here, and thank you all for braving the weather to get out here. Certainly, today was planes, trains, and automobiles for me. Last night I was in Las Vegas, and I closed the last bar at 2 a.m., got back to the hotel, packed, got an hour and 15 minutes sleep, and then got up and got on a plane to get here.
Trooper.
Road warrior.
Well
Yeah. All right.
So I'm on fumes, but I've ridden every kind of conveyance possible except the ship today. Might have been faster to
The night
take a
is
slow
young.
boat.
We'll do a booze cruise.
Yeah, we can get you on a barge of some sort
No
later.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yep.
Cool. So we're super excited to have Dave here. Obviously, it's a rare treat for us. And Dave's going to talk to us about pretty much the full WhistlePig lineup tonight. But we're also going to talk a bit about the barrel that we have that we picked a bespoke blend of cask finishes for, which is our custom Old World blend of WhistlePig 12-year. And Dave will talk a bit about the Old World project, and we'll just get into it.
So, as is customary, our first interview question is, what's our first whiskey?
Yeah.
Oh, well, the first whiskey we're going to do today, and we're not doing them in the order that they're on the sheet, sorry.
Yeah, we're going to jump around a little, so we'll clue you in.
That's just the way I roll. So we're going to start with the WhistlePig 10-year-old. Just as a little bit of a background, most of you know I was a master distiller at Makers for quite a while. And if you know me, you know I'm not a very pretentious person. What you see is what you get. But I was kind of, in the early days, I was kind of succumbing to that, like the master chef that doesn't put salt and pepper on the table, and says
Right.
if I thought it needed it, I would have put it on I would have used it. People would say, "So how do you drink Makers?" And I would say, "Neat, like I made it." Unless you're a wuss, and then maybe a little water or ice, but come on.
Ooh.
And my best friend is going, are you going to stick a pinky up when you say that? And so he comes up to me one day and he goes, "Hey, Dave, I'm going to have a bourbon and Coke. I'm just feeling it." And I go, "Okay." He goes, "Would a Makers and Coke be better?" And I said, "Aaron, knowing your palate, yes, it would." And he says, "Then shut up, quit telling me how to drink what I'm paying for, and get me a Makers and Coke."
Right.
And the impact it had on me was profound. It made me realize it's not my job to tell you how to drink it. It's my job to make it so good you can have it however you want. And so that became one of the tenets of the 10-year, is to make it so good that you can have it however you want. And so I call the 10-year Mr. Versatile.
All right.
And I've got names for most of these.
So for all you guys out there, the
Versatile.
10-year is your second from your left.
The one
on the
labeled
lower
at
level.
10-year.
Are the one on your, and if it was a box, it would be in the lower left hand.
They're all labeled, so you'll see them.
So there were just a few concepts in doing this. And the first is there's two different kinds of rye, two different majority styles. Can anybody tell me what they are?
Anybody?
Come on, Josh.
What are the two principal
styles
styles
of
of rye whiskey? Well, that would be bourbons. That would be rye in the bourbon, but okay, you're close.
So there was the old Pennsylvania rye.
It's Pennsylvania or Monongahela rye, which is rye with no corn in it at all. And then there's Maryland style rye, which is the kissing cousin of bourbon. Okay, and the thing is that Maryland style rye predominated, and that with the exception of Michter's and Overholt for some time, and then Michter's and then none of them, the Monongahela ryes all died in 1933. It wasn't Prohibition; it was the way Prohibition ended that killed them. It was two things. The first thing is, when Prohibition ended, there had been a lot of sick people in America, and so the stock of aged whiskey had been depleted, and so when Prohibition, imagine that, and so
many prescriptions needed.
So literally in December of 1933, I found an ad for bourbon, and it was aged bourbon whiskey, 17% aged bourbon, 83% grain neutral spirits, because that's all they had. There was no aged spirits on American products at all. But what's sitting right off the shore in Boston at the end of Prohibition? Boatloads of Scotch, thanks to Joe Kennedy, right? He had the import rights. That's how the Kennedys made their fortune, is he had the import rights on all the Scotch. And so he had all this wonderfully aged Scotch sitting off the shore just waiting for Prohibition to end. What's sitting across the border from Detroit? Nicely aged Canadian whiskey. And what's sitting off the shore in Florida?
Rum.
Nicely aged rum. Yeah. Yes, Cuba.
Tons
Nicely
of rum.
aged rum. And so all of these flowed in, and the American producers immediately realized we can't compete on quality. We're going to have to compete on price. Okay? Now, most of the Monongahela rye guys were just little dots on the map, and they didn't have the capability to get big. And the exception of Overholt, but Overholt eventually succumbed because the Industrial Revolution just took over their site. And that just left the Baumberger distillery, which finally imploded in 1980. But the other thing, but in Kentucky, there's plenty of land, and most of the distillers had moved on to railroad sidings back in the 1840s, just because of the way the railroads came through Kentucky. So they had the capability to get big and the infrastructure to have cheap distribution. So the other thing is that in 1933, what else is going on in the agricultural world in the United States? The Dust Bowl. Okay, very good. And so the government decided we have to have a farm subsidy. So in 1933, the first Agricultural Adjustment Act, or the first farm subsidy, came out. Corn was subsidized. Rye wasn't. So if you're going to compete on price, are you going to make rye whiskey, or are you going to make whiskey with a lot of corn in it? Well, you're going to make whiskey with a lot of corn. And so those two factors literally almost killed Monongahela rye. But so my conclusion is, I want to feature rye in its glory, and that means we're going to bring back Monongahela rye. And so that was the first step. Is we're gonna learn how to do it, because it's the brat of all grains, and you got to figure out how to process it, and it wasn't easy. The second thing is, rye has got a reputation for being aggressive, and I think rye ought to be like a good first date. It ought to have nice legs and a nice body and a nice, long, warm finish. And it ought to be something you want to come back to, but no aggression.
Oh,
right? Not on the first date.
My wife was thinking loud and drunk.
Yeah. But
It worked out, though, for you.
Did.
when you
For
think
me.
about rye, though, it's either aggressive because it's too young or because it's got too much tannin. Because tannin doesn't play well in rye. A little tannin in bourbon you can hang with, a little tannin in a red wine, yeah, but not so much in a rye. And so our conclusion is you got to have at least 2 barrels to age it. And So we put it in the first barrel, a lightly charred 53-gallon barrel. It sits there 5 to 7 years, and we're watching all the good wood extracts, the caramels, the vanillas, the oaks, the smokes, the mints, the coconuts, the wood acids, and I could go on for probably another 10 minutes. But then we're also watching the tannins. When we're happy with the good stuff and before the tannins become a problem, we just take it out of that barrel, put it into a once-used bourbon barrel, and let it continue to age. So we can get all the oxidation, all the chemical reactions to complete the esterification, but have it done without massive tannin extract. So I can say categorically, I can serve you, because I'm managing the caramel extract in our whiskey, naturally, I'm not adding caramel, but because of that, you won't ever get the back of your palate burned when you drink a WhistlePig product, regardless of the proof. So that's the second tenet. And the third is get the proof right. Because in my world, alcohol is just there to deliver taste. And that means there's a perfect proof point for each spirit. And so when we went to setting this, I really concerned over it because I've been drinking off a still for 30 years. And I kind of like high proof. And I thought, well, maybe not everybody does. So I thought,
we do. That's our thing.
I thought better at least check. So I got a bottle and took it to one of the watering holes where the bartenders all go after hours. Served 55 shots during the course of the evening. And I said, just enjoy this. And when you're done, take a 3x5 card and write down the proof you think you just enjoyed. And at the end of the night, it's kind of like a caucus. We'd pick up the cards and announce the numbers. Somebody's sitting over in a corner tabulating.
Right.
We get all done. The average came out to 86.0. And the highest anybody guessed all night long was 90.
Huh.
And I'm going, all right, we don't have the proof too high. But what it means is when you sip on this, it's not going to be offensive even though it's 100 proof, because the caramels is obscuring the proof. But if you want to have it with a little water or a little ice, because it is 100 proof, you're not going to over dilute it. And if you want to build a cocktail with it, all the bartenders will tell you they want to build a cocktail with 100 proof because it doesn't get lost in the mixer.
Right. It doesn't feel watered down.
Yeah. So if you like the anise notes in here, make a Sazerac. If you like the burnt orange notes, make an old fashioned or a whiskey sour of some style. If you like the mint notes, make a julep. The thing is, there's something in here for every classic cocktail. So this one truly is Mr. Versatile. So
is this what you guys started with WhistlePig?
Yes.
Well, this was the first.
This is our first product to release. By the way, does anybody work for the government? I need to.
We don't let those people in.
I need to find the person that's responsible for the alphabet. I want to petition them to add 6 more M's. Because there's just not enough M's to describe WhistlePig. And I think it ought to be JKLMNOP. And so I'm going to write a letter if I can ever figure out who's responsible and just see what happens. Probably nothing, but it's always worth a try, right? You aim at nothing, you hit it.
We love a man who's proud of his work.
Right.
Indeed. Yeah. Cheers.
So
Cheers.
Go ahead and
Yeah.
nose this. When you nose
get
this, it's going to nose like a really nicely aged bourbon. Right, and y'all are all experienced nosers, so nobody's just going to stick their nose in here and sniff, right? Because you'll burn your olfactory senses, or burn your snoot, as I would say. Open your mouth and breathe through your mouth. And rock the thing back and forth, because your olfactory senses are never perfectly balanced. And it gives you the nose of a really nicely aged bourbon, with just a little spice peeking through the trees. When you taste it, a different animal altogether. How many of y'all have been to a drag race or seen a drag race? The kind with cars. Okay. The other kind's way more fun. I'm just telling you. But the other kind's way more fun.
Yeah.
But
Jake started them both.
You get the Christmas tree lights. Red, yellow, green, and the cars sit down for just a second before they explode off the line. That's what happens. You put this in your mouth, swish it around a little bit. 3, 2, 1, boom, and here comes all the spices. And because there's no corn to confuse it, they're all distinct, so you can pick them out. There goes the allspice and the ginger and the anise and the clove and the burnt orange, and you can pick them out as they fly off. And then just when you think it's going to get too big, it settles down, and it finishes with this caramel, butterscotch, and vanilla finish that's so long it needs its own zip code.
A long finish. I like that. I've never heard that said quite that way. Its own zip code.
It needs its own zip code.
Yeah. We know a few other things that need their own zip code, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a positive thing. But, I think in this case we can be down with it.
it's a good thing.
Indeed.
So while we're sipping on this one, David, I think we need to, I know you do a lot of these interviews, but I don't want to leave out your story because I know you were at Makers for 15 years or so, and since then it seems like you've just been on a whirlwind, pretty much creating every craft distillery in the country. So maybe just give people a little color on what you've been up to and your adventures, and
Sure. This is the fourth iteration of my adult life. I am Peter Pan, by the way.
We appreciate that.
I have no intention of ever growing up. If I did, I wish to be Jimmy Russell.
Yeah.
But
we just got
we
spent
met
some
him
time
last
with him
week,
last week.
and,
What a gentleman.
Bruce calls me his
Wonderful
uncle,
man.
by the way.
Wow.
I'm his whiskey uncle. So my first iteration of adult life was in the Army. I served in active duty for 11 years as a cavalry officer, a logistics officer, a parachutist. Even went to Ranger School.
Wow.
And did 11 years. They finally told me it was time to leave and awarded me with a marvelous VA for life because of my disabilities from jumping too many times. Then I just went off to be a chemical engineer, which is what I always wanted to do. And my mentor, Dr. Charlie Plank, rest his soul, he passed away on December 23rd. I had 59 job offers right out of West Point. I just got done teaching chemistry, all in the petrochem and process chemical industry. And I just needed a letter of reference to fill out my portfolio. And I called Dr. Plank up because he was my mentor, and he meant so much to me. And he goes, "No, I'm going to tell you where to work." He goes, "I've never done this in 40 years, but I've never seen a match quite like this." And what he had discovered was when I was standing for my master's degree that I'm an idiot savant at distilling. There are people that actually call me Grain Man. And I kind of think that's cute.
Definitely Maker's Mark.
But when he gave the final, I got a 99, and the second high score was a 35. And it's not because I'm that much smarter than anybody else. There were a lot of kids in the class that were far smarter. It's just that I can close my eyes and see molecules running around in a still and know where they're going and why. And it's just some weird innate thing.
Born for whiskey.
But so he decided the beverage alcohol industry needed me. And so he introduced me to this little consulting firm out of Louisville called Rotec. And they had 5 full-time employees, but they had an international reach. And the fun thing was the only other chemical engineer was the principal, a guy named John Meredith. And if you think I'm large, you've never met John. He was a good 6 inches taller than me and probably a good 80 pounds heavier. And he would not get on an airplane. Apparently, in his youth, they used him as ballast once.
On a boat?
Have you ever had, where you're on a smaller plane and they're taking inventory of the empty seats and they say, "Okay, I need 3 people to move from zone 1." No, they said,
"I'm always
"Sir,
that person.
Would you please move from here to there?" And that was the last time he ever got on an airplane.
Wow.
But that meant that anytime we got into the cool overseas stuff, I got it. So I got to work at the Shandong General Alcohol Distillery in China. I got to work at 6 different Scotch distilleries in Scotland. I got to work in a couple of tequilerias in Mexico. Got to work at a couple breweries in the Dominican Republic and a couple of Canadian whiskey distilleries and aside from just getting to work for all the bourbon guys. So I got some great exposure, some of the best and a couple of the worst whiskeys in the world.
Yes. Which one was the worst? Come on.
Oh, the worst. The worst. And I'll tell you the second worst. Because there's not time for both. But the second worst, I was going to Jinan, China. This giant distillery. It's more than twice the size of Jack Daniel's. Massive. Their boiler is a 565 psi boiler. They actually generate electricity that they sell back to the government. That's how big. So we're driving in, and it's not just a distillery, but they also, in China, they're responsible for everything. So the government tells them, you'll have 1,256 employees, which is the number for this distillery. And but you also get their families, and you have to house, you have to clothe, you have to feed, you have to provide medical and everything. So it becomes a city. So we're driving in, and I'm overcome with the immensity because I hadn't really anticipated this. And I look at my host and I say, you do make beverage alcohol here, right? And he goes, yes. I go, okay. So we're going a little bit farther, and the plant is looming larger and larger. There's this ginormous smokestack, and I'm looking at him again, and I go, do you make fuel alcohol here? He goes, yes. And so I said,
You use the same
what's
still?
the difference? And he looked at me and he goes, some goes in bottles. I'm going, oh my God, what have I got myself into? So there were a number of projects that we're working on, and one of them was when I started working for him, the Ministry of Agriculture just sent them burlap bags full of cut up dried potato wedges. And that's what they made. And they were only making vodka anyway, to be fair. Okay? And the government wanted them to use other feedstocks. So part of my job was to convert the front end of the distillery so that they could mill corn and buckwheat, among other things. And so I'd been there off and on over 6 years. And this is my last visit. And because I just accepted a job at Makers. And so we're gambaying, which is kind of a friendship toast. And the way it works is, if they go gambay, it means friends. And there's these little miniature shot glasses, and you fill it up with whatever the beverage alcohol is on the table. You drink it, fill it, drink it, fill it, drink it, and then the third time you tip it, and nothing can come out. And then we're friends. Or they can go gambay, and that means good friends. It took me a while to figure out whether it was good friends or girlfriends, but
And how many tips
but
do
it
you
was
have to
okay.
do for
but,
good friends?
But good friends meant 6 of those little gems, and then they could go gambay, and that meant best friends, and there were 9 of them, and I didn't know how many best friends I had, and everybody was coming by during the night going gambay, and we started out with the Bautuquan, which is a local Pilsner style beer. It's a lot like Tsingtao. And we finished that up, and we weren't done being friends yet, apparently. So out comes the Mautai. Have any of you ever had the opportunity?
What's
The Mautai.
No, I don't think so.
It smelled like toilet water. That's putting it mildly. And I asked, how strong is this? And they called it Confucius house wine. And so he poured some on the table and just dropped a match on it. It goes, I go, okay, I guess that would be strong. And so we finished all of that off, and we still weren't done being good friends.
You were much better friends
And
than that.
we were much better friends. And so the distiller or the plant manager didn't want to be embarrassed at running out of toast juice. And so that day we had started distilling buckwheat for the first time. And he sent his distiller to go to the beer still, and not to the finish still, but to the beer still, and to pull the white dog off the beer still.
Hey-o.
And it would set your teeth on edge.
Yeah.
And so we finished the night with that, and he's going, so what did you think? What did you think? I'm going, this is a very distinctive product.
He didn't just go to get
I
that
will never forget this night. This is absolutely unspeakable. And
I don't have
and
words.
we finished the night with that. But that was the second worst spirit I ever had. And good thing was they were going to go ahead and distill it up to vodka, so it was going to be okay. But as whiskey, it was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it sounds pretty vile.
Gambay.
Gambay!
But so I finished my stint there. One of my clients was Maker's Mark, and I was down at Maker's Mark just working one day, and Bill Samuels walks out of the office and flags me down. And when Bill Samuels flags you down, you get flagged. And so I went over, and he goes, "Hey, Dave, did you know that we're looking for our next master distiller?" I said, "No, sir, I didn't." He goes, "Well, we are. That would explain why you didn't apply." He goes, "We just exhausted our entire candidate pool. Didn't find anybody we like. Frankly, we're tired of looking. We like you. And if you want it, the job's yours."
Wow.
That was my whole interview. For the only time in my life, I stuttered. Yes, thank you. And then for 14 years, I served as Bill Samuels Master Distiller. But in 2001, they made their only mistake in my career, and that was that the Distilled Spirits Council of the U.S., the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers Association, and the Mount Vernon Ladies Association all got together and decided it was time for people to know that George Washington was a distiller, and that he made rye whiskey, and that he was possibly the most successful distiller in his age. Mm-hmm. And so I was asked to be on the team that resurrected the distillery. And makers said, okay. And so y'all have all probably had this happen at some point in time. You know, you're at a social event or some kind of outing, and you see somebody that you've never seen before, or maybe you see them in a new light, and you go, they look interesting. Maybe I should go say hi. And then hi leads to a little chat, and maybe a drink or two, and then maybe we should continue this over dinner tomorrow night. And then one thing leads to another, and it's a full-blown romance. Well, that was me and rye whiskey. And, and while makers, rye is a 4-letter word. It is Kentucky. But and here I am dreaming about rye. And, and at first I couldn't do anything about it because rye was a dead category. I mean, literally every year it was just losing more and more consumers. In my entire childhood, I only knew one guy that drank rye. And it was a great uncle. Did you ever go to those? How many of y'all had family reunions when you were kids? Right? Oh, my dad's mom was one of 7.
Whoa,
and we had this massive family reunions. There'd be 100, 150 people there. And there was no way as a little kid that I could figure this out. I just identified couples like there was Aunt Opal and Uncle Jack and Aunt Ann and Uncle George and Pearl and Sam and I never knew which one was my uncle and which one or aunt and which one was just the partner. And then there was Frida and Rye. And I never knew what Rye's real name was, but I knew what he drank. So it continued to weigh on me. 2006 the cocktail culture began. And the bartenders started making authentic cocktails again and discovered that most of them called for rye whiskey. And the category of rye grew 20% in 2006. Mm-hmm. 2007, it grew at 30%. And I left Maker's Mark in early 2008 to be part of the resurrection of rye and to be involved in the craft cocktail and the craft spirit movement. My goal was to make it easy. I called it putting feet on dreams. I wanted to see people's dream of owning a craft distillery come to life. And that meant doing whatever it took, whether it was writing or whether it was designing equipment that would cut down on the cost or whether it was beating up suppliers and getting discounts or whatever it was. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And that was almost 9 years ago now, which is hard to believe. Seems like yesterday. I still call Maker's Mark we. I still sign Maker's stuff. I still prank Bill Samuels, which is really fun. But one of the brands that I founded and my principal element is WhistlePig. But I am I've built something on the order of 50 distilleries and consulted for about 100, and am a part owner for 6, which includes WhistlePig, Hill Rock, Garrison Brothers, Nelson's Greenbrier, which is Bellmead Bourbon, J. Rieger and Company, and Barrow's Intense Ginger Liqueur. So,
all right,
I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great.
Well, let's drink some more whiskey.
So
let's get doing our barrel
what's
next.
What's next?
Let's do the 15 next.
Don't mind if we do.
So, the 15 was just kind of a fun deal. How many of y'all could, if I say the name Melanie Sofka, does that ring a bell to anybody? If I say she was a singer and she was a one-hit wonder.
What's her tune?
Her tune was, I got a brand new pair of
roller skates.
You got a brand new key.
I've met that Melanie a few times under different guises.
we discovered that we had white oak trees on our property. And it just happens that the owner of Independent Stave, the world's largest cooperage, Brad Boswell, is a good friend of mine. And I knew him when he was a kid. I worked with his dad. And he loves experimenting. And so basically I called him up and I sang, I got a bunch of brand new oak trees. You got a cooperage. I think that we should get together and see what we can see. And so I went down there and we developed a program of taking Vermont oak trees from our forest and turning them into barrels at his cooperage. But we do it a little differently than anybody else. So y'all are all familiar with Maker's 46, right?
Yep.
Okay, what's the 46 mean?
I don't know what 46 means.
Okay.
Isn't there something about the staves or something?
Can anybody articulate
Something to do with
what
the staves.
46, the significance of 46? Okay.
That's a no.
Nope.
Char number 46.
I wish. Holy moly.
Very charred.
Actually, Independent Stave has this book of protocols. And protocol number 46 is take a fully matured barrel of whiskey, open the head up, and put 10 charred French oak staves in it and leave them for 2 months. That's protocol 46. So that's how they got Maker's 46. Nobody knows that. I told makers, you just ought to quit trying to explain it and just say it was the year Bill Samuels started grade school. Which is true, by the way. Or the year he met his future wife, which is also true, I think.
Wow.
So we're at Independent Stave. I told them, you don't get to put numbers on this because nobody else gets to use these. And we developed 2 protocols, one for new barrels and one for finishing barrels. And the concept is that the staves are cut and then they're allowed to air dry for a certain number of months. Then they go in, the shell of the barrel is prepared, and then it's toasted like a wine barrel to elicit certain extra compounds. Then we char the heads and the staves at different rates to optimize some of the other extracts. Then we put it together. So the 15, it's just like the 10, only it spent an extra 4.5 years in that second barrel. And then it goes into a Vermont oak barrel for 6 months. Now, it doesn't take much because a standard bourbon barrel, has anybody got any idea about how many growth rings per inch a standard bourbon barrel has?
How many what?
Growth rings per inch.
Probably many fewer than a Vermont oak because it's
Way
because of
fewer.
the temperature, right?
And the growing
long
conditions.
winters. Yeah.
So an average bourbon barrel's got 8 to 12 growth rings per inch. Wine barrels, they have 3 grades, fine, extra fine, and ultra fine, I think are the names. And it goes from 12 growth rings per inch to 22. Our barrels are 26, which means the extract is unbelievably intense.
These are really dense wood, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
very dense. Just like me, very dense. So when you taste this one, remember it started out as a 10-year, and just like most people with 10-year, it hangs around, so.
Is it a 10-year joke?
Yes.
That was,
Sorry.
10 years. Yes.
I'm really trying to make a few dad jokes here. So
Yeah,
please-
you're,
okay.
you're definitely in the dad category.
Okay.
I feel like I'm recently a dad, and I find that with that my dad joke quota
can't
went
avoid it.
way
Oh,
up.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I just
yeah, you got it.
I
You
jumped
gotta
right
roll
in
with
there,
the dad
and I'm also feeling a little jealous. You guys both have hats on. I'm feeling like I'm uncovered head for the whiskey gods or something here.
You can put my coat on over here. like a hod. So when you taste this one, it's going to be a lot richer, and the spice that was present on the front end in the 10 goes all the way through the finish on the 15. And you're going to find this little burnt marshmallow note in there that's there just because I can. Right?
Yeah.
Got to have a little fun with this.
Is this
Oh, what a treat.
Indiana or Alberta?
This is Alberta. It's exactly the same juice. So the 10 and the 15 are currently all Alberta. The 12 is all MGPI.
Oh, you got a hat. How nice.
I got a hat. I feel much better. Yeah. I was. I was inadequate before, you know?
Touch brims. How 21st century.
Yeah, you know. Whatever it takes.
You got the pink hat, but it's okay.
It's pink.
Yeah.
It's just old.
Yeah,
All
now
right
I'm
there,
just
Pink
going to
Hat.
smell like Jake's head for the rest of the night. It's okay.
We're
No
going to
worries.
change
Thank you,
Jake's
Jake.
nickname to Drag Race.
Drag Race Cahill over there. Doing it like it's done.
All right.
Yeah, we're on it. We're on it.
Well, what a
for you.
treat.
Yeah,
WhistlePig
this stuff
15
is
year.
very nice.
You get that little marshmallow.
It is fun.
Who else were we just talking to about the marshmallow thing? Folks at Michter's or something.
Oh, yeah.
With the marshmallow.
Oh, right. Well, they had the marshmallow you have to blow out because it's on fire.
It was
and then
the
you
toasted.
Yeah,
maybe,
the toasted, right.
Yeah, very good.
No. This is 92.
92.
Yeah. Again, this was a little more intense, so we had to knock the proof down a little bit to carry it.
Yeah, it's very nice. And the finish is also super long on this and really nice. You get the spice coming all the way through. Nice back of the palate. So what?
So if the 10 is all about Mr. Versatile, the 15 is I need a treat. 15 is treat me.
When you guys first started WhistlePig going, did you have a plan for how you wanted to see things evolve, or has it kind of been a little bit of like, what can we do? What should we do?
We had a plan A and a plan B. And, you can do the math and realize that I was working on this before I left Maker's Mark.
Right.
And that was plan B. There was only one distillery in the world at the time that was capable of making 100% rye, and it was Alberta. And so plan B was always get some juice from Alberta.
Right.
Plan A was start making our own. And the Vermont government is rather anti-business. And
No.
can you believe it? They've chased Walmart out.
Bernie Sanders.
They've chased out. They've chased out McDonald's. They're trying to chase Ben and Jerry's out, I think.
Whoa, really? Ben and Jerry's is like
it's a
their
staple.
thing.
Yeah.
I got one thing going for him.
But yeah, feel the burn. But so we went and I thought they were very congenial up front. They gave us a sheet of paper right at the very beginning, and it was a list of all the agencies that needed to give us a hack before we could start. And contact numbers and everything. So
in terms of getting a distillery license.
in terms of starting the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And getting going as a distillery. So we started. We said let's just see how this plays out. So we started calling around and managed to get the health inspection, the health code people, the building code people, and the ABC guys to all caravan down and come on the same morning. They all arrived. The health inspector, and this is a true story, I swear. The health inspector goes, "Can I be first?" And everybody goes, "He's always first." Okay, go ahead. He goes, "I just got one question." He goes, Are you gonna prepare and serve food?" And we said, "No, we have no intention of preparing and serving food. If we desire to serve food, it'll be using a duly licensed catering company." And he goes, "Great. Then I don't have any more questions. Here's my initials. Here's my check mark. I'm out of here." He's gone. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the building code guy goes, "Can I be next?" And the ABC guy was just a little too quick to say, "Yes, please." And I'm like, "Okay." So the building guy goes, "Can we just walk around the site for a minute? It's an old defunct dairy farm." And so we wander around for a little bit, and he comes back and he says, "I see no obvious building code deficiencies. Here's when here's the codes you need to live up to. Here's when you need to pull the permits. Here's how you go about it. Good luck, boys." And he gives us his initials, and he's gone.
You're like, this is going great.
We're going, yeah. And the ABC guy is just, there's something not right. He's looking out the window and he's making sure everybody else is gone. And now we're remote. We're a mile and a half from the nearest paved surface. Okay. And I don't even know if that exists around here, but we're a mile and a half
Probably
from the
where
nearest
you are in
paved
Vermont,
surface.
it exists around here.
But but the ABC guy goes, do you have internet here? We go, "Oh, yeah, we got internet." He goes, "Do you have a computer that's hooked to a printer?" Yeah, we can do that. And he goes, "Great, I'm flying. And he sits down and he pulls up all the ABC website. He's filling out all the forms for us.
Huh.
And he said, okay, while I'm doing this, you write a check out for $375 made out to this, and $250 made to that, and $125 made to this. And he goes, look, this place creeps me out. We're getting this all done, and I'm never coming back. Wow. So he says, I don't want there to be any errors at all in your forms, so I'm just going to fill them out for you. So he fills out all of our forms. We get all the signatures, and he goes, oh, wait, I have to train you. Runs out, grabs 2 manuals out of his car, sets them down. He's flipping pages like this, and he's creating enough wind that it's more wind than the box fan in the front door. Every once in a while, he'd stop, and he'd point to a few things, and more pages, and stop, and he'd point, and he'd go, okay, your training's done, and he'd sign it, got in the car, and left. That was in early 2010. We haven't seen him since.
Were you?
And no, we didn't kill him and bury him.
Were you just not wearing pants? Like, what was so creepy?
Yeah, what was going on there?
It's just remote. I mean, some people. I put on the buck teeth thing.
Yeah,
Hey, Billy.
He just he thought the farm was haunted. Was he just had some weird?
You
vibe?
look awful pretty there. But
liked-
anything
he
to get
liked
the ABC
alcohol,
officer
Bureau
not
man.
to come back.
All right. Sweet.
But so then the next we thought, all right, let's embolden. Let's go for Act 250. And Act 250 is an environmental act that basically says you will not take historically agricultural land and use it for non-agricultural purposes without just cause. And our farm was historically agricultural. And so we had all kinds of lawyers that said, yeah, grow grain, pull water out of the ground, make whiskey, feed livestock. Yep, agricultural. So we go, great, let's go get our check mark. And the commissioner decides to parse it out instead of be holistic. So he goes, grow grain. Yep, that's agricultural. Feed livestock. That's agricultural. Pull water out of the ground. I don't know, boys. Sometimes, people pull water out of the ground and wash cars with it. I think we need to have a full hearing. Well, that opened the door to every neo-prohibitionist and anti-business person in the state of Vermont to come and kick our tires and throw rocks under them. We actually had a pig farmer, I'm not making this up, who complained that we were going to smell bad. And I go, you're a pig farmer.
Yeah.
He
Pig
goes,
shit smells
a
great.
different kind of bad. And so then we'd have to have a hearing that we were going to smell like a bakery and that bakery smells are generally viewed as positive. And then somebody raises an issue and says, I think that they're going to belch a fungus that's going to kill the fruits and vegetables that I was thinking about growing 5 miles away. So we had to have a hearing on a non-existent fungus that's going to kill non-existent fruits and vegetables. And we had a guy that said their smokestacks are going to disturb the bucolic setting. And I'm going, you can't see the distillery from where you are. But so we had to get our architect to draw up all the drawings. And we even had to promise not to knock any buildings over, even though which meant run back and put braces on the barn because we were afraid the wind was going to blow it over and we'd get fined for starting construction early. This went on for
Vermont bureaucracy.
4.5 years. Cost us $250,000. We wound up hiring the lawyer because it was cheaper.
Wow.
And so we had to pull the ripcord and start with Plan B. And then about 1.5 years ago, we finally turned on the still and started making our own juice. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But what I really want to talk about now is the 12-year.
Yeah, let's talk about our barrel.
Yeah.
So about 5 years ago, I'm up at the distillery and engaging in strategic thought. And we are a very strategically minded company. And basically, I locked myself in the farmhouse for a couple days. And I said, just leave me alone until you see white smoke. And and then...
Taking a pope?
Yep. Yeah. And I envisioned mostly what I was doing is like rolling out cookie dough. I knew how much whiskey we had in the warehouse. I knew what our plans were for growth in our existing markets, what new markets we wanted to open up, and it was making sure that we could spread the cookie dough evenly. Okay? But while I'm at it, I'm also thinking in other directions, and if we want to be the guy that people go to when you're growing up and you say, okay, I'm done with light tasting Canadian or easy drinking bourbon, I want something with more body. We'd rather have you go to us than Scotch. but that means we got to keep an eye on what the Scotch guys are doing. And there's my buddy, Dr. Bill Lumsden, over at Glenmorangie, just releasing all these marvelous finishes, Nectar d'Or and Quinta Robin, and I'm going, we got no game. We got nothing. So I came out and said, we need money to figure this out. And the team said, okay, yeah, we agree. So the first thing I did is reached out to a friend of mine who was really good at rounding up barrels in Europe. And I said, I want every kind of high residual sugar content or fortified wine that you can find in the old world and that you can get your hands on. And so it took him a year to do what we call the Great Barrel Roundup. And involved in that, there were 5 Madeiras. We got Malmsey, Boal, Cercial, Rainwater, and Verdelho. I did not get Tarentaise, which to this day hurts my heart because Tarentaise is my favorite. And if I ever find a bottle of Tarentaise, I'm probably just going to sit in front of it until it's gone. I did that in Houston recently.
It's a good plan.
It is. I'm looking at the line of Madeiras, and I see a bottle of Tarentaise, and there's probably 3 shots left in it. And I said, just park that in front of me because I'm not getting up until it's gone. It was like $58 a shot. And I'm going, I don't care.
Yeah, mine.
I'm mine.
Yeah.
But so I got 5 Madeiras. I got 5 sherries. Oloroso, Manzanilla, Amontillado, Pedro Jimenez, and Fino. I got 2 ports, a tawny and a ruby. I got 3 high residual sugar contents, Sauterne, Moscato, and Tokai. I even got Pierre Ferrand to kick in some XO barrels. So 16 different finishes. And now I'm going, oh, crap. Now I got to figure this out. And so I did what I always do when I need help like that. Went to the bartenders. And over 2 years, we had focus groups that involved over 500 bartenders all over the U.S.
Wow.
And we sorted it out and got it narrowed down to French Sauterne, Verdelho Madeira, and Tawny Port. And the idea was they had to be delicious finishes on their own, and they had to be capable of marrying, which means, for instance, once we settled on Tawny Port, that means that Malmsey, Boal, Amontillado, Manzanilla, and Pedro Jimenez are out because too many people would mistake them or not be able to clearly differentiate. So some of them, and then I just blew up Cercial and Rainwater because I'm just not a fan. And the French government was a pain in the ass, and so we had to nix the XO. So we finally got it narrowed down. And then we said, all right, now let's take a breath. After 3 years, let's just release those individual finishes and see what happens. And so we became the first American whiskey ever finished in Sauterne, the second rye whiskey finished in Madeira, the first being George Washington, and I'll take second fiddle to him any day. And the Sauterne made it to San Francisco in time to be judged as the best rye whiskey in the world in 2015. It was the 3rd time that one of our whiskeys had been judged as the best rye whiskey in the world. So we're going, okay, and they just disappeared so fast. There was a giant sucking sound in the warehouse as it was all removed.
I just remember you couldn't even get your hands on it.
It was hard to get your hands on it.
The good people at FedEx are enjoying one right now.
Yes, probably. They went, score! Suck it, guys.
Yeah, they're laughing at us.
Yep. Christmas came really early this year. So then, emboldened by the successes and the recognition, we said, let's go ahead and try to have a marriage. And everybody should get to have a successful marriage. and I hope this is mine because the rest hadn't panned out too well. I approached it like a cocktail. I've got 4 ingredients: Sauterne, Madeira, Port, and Rye. Got to be able to taste all 4, and I wanted it to be in perfect balance. And so that was my objectives. I carried around the pure finishes for 6 months, every night trying to do 2 rounds. I started at an awful spot because that's usually what I do, and then I just kind of worked my way around it. It took 6 months to get to the spot where it finally all put together, and it was 63% Madeira, 30% Sauterne, and 7% Port. And we released that, and in 2016, the Robb Report selected that as their 2016 Spirit of the Year. But we decided, I had so much fun doing that. It took me 4 years, right? we should let other people do this too. And so
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah.
in walks the BeastMasters and said, we kind of think we've got a different answer. And we kind of like spice more. And so they created their own custom blend, and that's what it's actually not a blend. It's a mingling or a marriage. We don't blend. Blend is a 4-letter word. Again, remember, I'm from Kentucky. I can't count, but I know what 4-letter words are. Blending actually means you've adulterated it with grade neutral spirits and other adulterants, and we don't do that. So we mingle or marry.
I like the marriage.
So we're marrying these. But this marriage is much more heavily weighted to the Madeira. Of the 3 components, the Sauterne is designed as top note. It gives you honey and orange blossom notes, a little bit of mouthfeel from the high residual sugar content. The port gives you bottom notes. It gives you dark chocolate, leather, and all the winter fruits. But because we use Verdelho Madeira, it's got a grapefruit acidity and pepper note. And the net effect on that is that it pumps the volume on the spice. So we asked the question about why we used MGPI for this. And the reason is if you use Verdelho Madeira on a finish that's 100% rye and 100 proof, it takes your breath away. You just can't drink it. It's so spicy. And the effect of malt is like putting a mute on a trumpet. And so 5% malt is enough to mute the spiciness, just enough that the Madeira played nice in the sandbox.
We really liked the way the Madeira complemented the MGP rye, and we thought it played very well together. And we actually tasted a bunch of different cask finish ryes that came out after you guys were doing your thing, and we really felt like this was subtler, and just in the old world has a nice like complementary subtleness where it's still rye. It's not some other Frankenstein-y kind of thing. But some of those other things, they just come out a little too strong, and they lose the fact that you're drinking a really nice rye.
I like this. So there's 2 different styles of finish. This is just me. Nobody's ever. I'm just making this up. Okay, but there's 2 styles of finishes: short term and long term. And my style of finishing is short term. It's typically 2 to 10 weeks, and all I'm looking to do is supplement. I've got the basic character of the rye, and I don't want to adulter that at all. I just want to tack little fun notes on, right? The long-term finish supplants. It reaches in and takes out some of the guts of the rye and replaces it with the finishing notes. It's not bad, it's just different. So can you tell me a rye that does that?
Like a Midwinter Night's Dram, maybe.
Okay, or Angel's Envy is the most famous
Angel's
one.
Envy.
Angel's Envy rye is finished in
Caribbean rum
barrels, right?
Yeah.
When you taste it, it's delicious. Doesn't taste like rye. It tastes like candied apples.
It's like bubble gum. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's straight up candied apples. It's delicious. People love it. Nothing wrong with it. But it doesn't have the big rye spiciness.
There's something wrong with it.
Well, you can say that.
Steve's not a fan at all. Yeah.
I love Angel's Envy, but not the rye.
But that's the difference between a short-term and a long-term finish is supplement versus supplant.
Well, this short-term finish works very well, and we're huge
so
fans.
you don't lose the rye.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for putting out a 12-year rye barrel. We've been hunting for a good rye barrel for a while.
For a while, it's almost impossible to find now.
Yeah, and we're really excited about this one.
That's because we own all of it.
That's where it is. Damn it.
You guys bought up all
We
the
did.
American rye.
Yeah, we did. We decided that we were going to, not just create the category, but we were going to own and demolish
Corner the market.
and corner the market.
Hey,
And so we've been gone on a great roundup and
Nice.
finding all of the rye that's over 6 years old and buying it. And then it becomes my job to marshal it along. in
so
its
it's all
aging
your
process.
fault that we can't find.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Well, or we just have to buy WhistlePig.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I say it's kind of like it's like water polo.
Yeah.
Above the water, it's a great game. Below the water, there's
It's
a lot
evil.
of kicking and
Super
gouging.
evil. Yeah, I was a water polo player
Yeah,
in high school.
it's evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a question for Dave or want to give a little tasting note on our barrel?
Yeah, anybody-
Anybody want to come up?
Anybody have any questions to ask? We can put you on the mic. Don't be shy,
Dave, wanna
please.
ask you a question?
Come on up. Jake,
Come up.
somebody's got to have something to say. Oh, yeah, please. Come on in. Yeah.
So, can you tell us a bit more about why it's hard working with 100% rye?
Yes. So there are traditionally two. Rye is the brat of all grains. There were two things, two different topics. One is viscosity, and the other is foam. Foam. For instance, I learned a lesson at Mount Vernon. The batch size is about 100 gallons. And the first day of commercial batch making, we decided we were going to do 3 batches. First 2 batches started off without a hitch. The third batch, it's at the end of the day, everybody's tired, we're ready to go home, and it's foam. It starts to foam a little bit. And I'm thinking, well, that's odd. I haven't added any yeast to it. There's no reason for it to be bubbling. I go, maybe I stirred it too hard. And so, I'm still got a little of that hubris, right? So I got a mash rake out, and I popped all the bubbles, and I go, there, that'll do it. And we're back to cleaning. I look over again.
Foamy.
It's bubbling again. I'm going, well, it wasn't me. So then I cheated. We're only supposed to use 18th century means and methods, and I got a hose out and sprayed it down. I'm going, there, that'll get it. And we get back to cleaning up. Everybody's going, can we go? We're so tired. We've already missed dinner. It's just bedtime now. And I'm looking, and it's bubbling again, and I'm unsettled about leaving this alone for 12 hours. So we hung around and found a 6 mil Visqueen plastic and sheet and just hung that over top of the fermenter and bungee corded it on. Put a piece of plywood over top of that and 3 bricks. And I said, all right, at least if it foams overnight, it'll be self-contained and we can deal with the mess in the morning. We locked up and left.
Famous
In the
last words.
morning we came back. Plywood's on the floor. Bricks are on the floor. The plastic is ripped, and it's belching foam. And it was so epic I had to measure it because there was more foam than Grandma's feather bed.
Wow.
It was 6 feet wide, 2 feet deep, 20 feet long, and growing. Now, if you want to do the math real quick, that's 240 cubic feet of foam from a 100-gallon fermenter. And by the time we got done with the snow shovels, getting it out of the building, it looked like a nor'easter had come through and dropped 6 inches of snow in the front yard. My notes for the day were really simple. It said, just figure this out. But the cool thing was 2 didn't foam and 1 did, right? So that means Sesame Street logic applies, right? Exactly. One of these things is not like the others. One
Right.
of these things is not the same. And so I'm really good at
Really have a career in
documentation.
jingles.
Thank
It's
you.
Clearly,
Yeah.
I can probably sing all the Pepsi jingles going back for 50 years. And Dr. Pepper and all the other ones. Music's my thing. But we went back to meticulously studied and found that there was one thing different. It was the temperature at which the rye was cooked. And we found a hard deck temperature. If you get all the rye in above that temperature, it won't foam. And what we surmise is that we denature the beta glucans that interact with the proteins to form the foam. And so we've got this hard deck above which, and if you read all the literature, basically everybody says, screw the foam, fight the viscosity, and then just throw chemicals in to stop the foam. Okay? That's what every book, if you go all the way back to the Practical Distiller, you know what their answer was to foam? Get a paintbrush full of lard and paint the
Put it
foam.
in.
Now, you think that's weird? We've all done something very analogous.
beer where you
when
rub
you
your
have a
nose.
beer that's got too much foam in it, and you rub the side and take some facial oil and put
Same thing.
Same exact thing, right? I don't know who thought. Who would think? I've got this foaming fermenter. Let's go get lard and a paintbrush. Who thinks that? But it worked.
Well, whoever knows that oil will break up those
Right.
bubbles, yeah.
But somebody had to figure it out. That's right. Yeah, yo, everybody, get over here. Nose brigade. They had all the people with really big noses. And
Has to be nose grease, only nose grease.
Everybody traditionally, the traditional thing is just put the rye in cold, because you get it in below its gelatinization temperature and you get it all hydrated, and then and then it'll come up nicely. It's thick but nice, and it'll foam like hell, and you just fight the foam.
Right.
And so my philosophy is I hate just throwing chemicals in to fight foam. So let's figure it out. So we have a tool that they didn't have, and that's exogenous enzymes. And it's the same enzymes that are present in malted barley, just without the grain. And so there's nothing unnatural about it. It's the same stuff. And so what you can do is you cook at a really high temperature to denature the things that cause the foam, and you just watch it. And if it looks like it's misbehaving, you hit it with some enzymes to break the viscosity a little bit, so that you can keep adding the grain until it's all in. And so we manage. But it's about managing the tricks. And there's a number of tricks. You can sit there. It's like, has anybody ever made a puff pastry?
Yep.
Okay. So I've never seen a recipe yet that can tell you exactly how much egg yolk to add or exactly how much to whip it.
Sure.
You have to get an innate sense. You just look at it and you go, it needs a little bit
And
more.
it's different in all kinds of places with
whip it good.
altitude.
And you just need to, whip it.
Yeah.
Whip it real good.
Whip it.
Boop, 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 boop. Sorry, more music. But you just need to have experience, and you need to just look at it. It's the same with cooking rye.
I need one of those Devo hats now. Like
The steps.
You just need to look at it, and you get your glasses steamy, and you're going up. It's misbehaving. I think I should turn the steam up a little bit and get it to bubble a little bit, and that'll help. Or looks like I need to add some alpha amylase, and that'll knock it down. And you just kind of get you've got a set of tricks. You just pull one out of the bag and use it, and so those are the things you have to manage the viscosity. You have to manage the foam, and if you do it right, you can do it. It was really funny. I was presenting in Boston the other day, and somebody in a group like this said, a distiller just came up to me and said it was impossible to make a rye with 100% rye. And I said, well, maybe for him it is.
But that
but
rye's a foamy brat.
But notice
that's all we know.
that there are things that I won't share. I won't share exactly how to decide, which enzyme to use or when to use the steam. And I'm not going to tell you what the temperature is. But there is a magic temperature, and if you stay above that, you don't have problems. If you get below it, you can have one hellacious mess. And I've cleaned up some massive messes.
So for all you rye distillers out there, take note. It's all the temperature.
Just denature the beta glucans.
Yeah, just the beta glucan. Get those beta glucans right. You're sweet.
Those damn beta
I'm
glucans.
sorry we couldn't get you a more thorough answer to your question.
Now you know
Sorry.
everything you
I'm a
needed to
little
know
bit of
about
a nerd.
foaming
I
rye.
apologize.
Anyone else?
Anyone? Question?
Yeah, I have to get up, sweetie.
I mean, you don't have to, but you could shout real
I
loud.
could throw this at
otherwise.
you, but you wouldn't like that either.
It's kind of like a long distance mic drop.
We have a question now from
Mrs.
Mrs.
Beast.
Smoky Beast.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Somebody has to say that every time.
Yeah, that's good. We like that.
So, I mean, what's your feeling on the future of the whiskey industry? So, meaning that a lot of the smaller distilleries are being purchased by larger corporations. I guess. I mean, there are corporations.
Yeah.
Bummer
Especially the ones
to get
especially
paid.
the ones that- It's a bummer.
He
to-
owns them, I'm
it's
sure.
a bummer
Joke.
to get
Right.
retirement money.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, I think, probably. But they're being purchased by larger conglomerations, and obviously the demand is really high. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening that are way different than, say, 15, 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago. So what are your thoughts, I mean, in terms of the future?
Sure. A great question. I have a crystal ball, by the way. And there are a number of issues that you reached out to there. One of them is the feeding frenzy on the big guys buying the little guys is only going to last a little bit longer, because they don't want 2 or 3; they want 1 each, maybe 2. And I think by midsummer the feeding frenzy is over. And if you haven't been bought, you're probably not going to get bought for a while. That's just an assessment. I can't explain why I know, but I do. The second thing is that a lot of guys are beginning to realize I don't need to be a national company. I can be a regional and do fine. And, if I just sell whiskey in my backyard, I can get to 5,000 cases a year. And at 5,000 cases a year, if I've managed my overheads right, I can pay myself a $60,000 a year salary and have $600,000 in distributions at the end of the year to distribute to the owners. And for most startup guys, that's really nice. And so I think there will become a regionalization where there'll be a lot of guys that'll just go, it's nuts to bust my hump trying to sell 5 cases in Arizona and 10 cases in Rhode Island, and I'm good with just owning my backyard. And there will be more guys do that. The other thing is, in that same kind of arena is, right now the millennials are supporting the price on a lot of this stuff because the craft guys can't afford to sell it at the same price the big guys. They don't have the economies of scale on anything. The last recession in 2008, my assertion is that most millennials didn't really feel it because they were still on daddy's pocketbook. The next recession, whenever it happens, the millennials will feel it for the first time. And when they do, right now the millennials will pay a lot of money for things that aren't necessarily quality related, because it's sustainable or local or GM free or 16 other things. Next recession hits and they've got it, and they're realizing how much their disposable income is cut, and they're going to say, "Geez, Makers is still $40 a bottle, and it tastes good, and this stuff is $100 a bottle, and I think I'll save the money." And I think what will happen is that the people that don't have the price value right are going to go belly up, and there'll be a lot of bankruptcies. Up to this point, there's essentially no craft spirit failures up to this point. You really have to mess up bad to fail. I think the only real reason that a craft spirit fails now is because they were on leased property and the leaseholder decided to do something else with the land. But so that's coming. It'll happen. We are having a few brands that are going away just because they were third party only and the juice ran out. So that's the downside. The upside is, this is the second tightest that the whiskey supply, American whiskey supply, has been in since Prohibition. The tightest was right after World War II, because the distilleries had been ratioed down so that they could provide alcohol for the war effort to make gunpowder and artificial rubber for tires and whatnot. And so the supply was low. And then when the war was over, wherever Johnny went, he took bourbon. And there were companies like Shenley, which is gone now, but Shenley was one of the powerhouses when I started in this industry. And Shenley was literally running around the country and buying small distilleries just to get their hands on the barrels that were in the warehouse. And then they would shut the distillery, close the brands, and use that to fund their own whiskey, their own brands. And that's how tight it was back then. We're not quite that tight now, but this is the second tightest it's been. If you can put rye on a label, you can sell it, even if it tastes like toilet water.
Yeah, it's true.
It really is. If you
people
can get
can't get
rye on a
enough.
label,
They want it all.
and people are doing all kinds of stuff to stretch it. Like Boo Rye and Conundrum and Forgiven. I don't think any of those were by accident.
I'm not really forgiving that.
But it's about ways to stretch. And Wild Turkey dropped their proof from 101 to 81. It's all about stretching the availability of rye. Even at that, the last 7 years, it's doubled every year as a category.
So
it would have grown more had there been more, but it's a supply limited and constrained deal. So but then in terms of product, what's going to come out is, I don't think you're going to see a proliferation of flavored per se. You are going to see a proliferation of multi-barrel aging and barrel finishes. And WhistlePig and Hill Rock are at the front edge of that. Between the two of us, we've got something like 20 different kinds of barrels to use in finishes.
You mean between us and us?
Yes, between me and me. Myself, and I.
So we have a preview of. I don't think this is on the shelves.
What are we
yet,
gonna?
right?
What are our next two? What's your order?
So the next one we're going to do is farm stock.
This is new.
This is a fun one. So people have been asking me, when are we going to see the juice from your still? And the deal is, I don't want to release a white dog, right? That was a fad. Nobody really cares.
Yeah.
The people might buy one just as a, okay, cool. Now I know what their white dog's like. But it's not. It's not.
Well, no, you don't, because they all proved it down.
Yeah.
How dare they?
Exactly.
Like, it's nothing like
Yeah. And so it doesn't make sense to me. But I keep getting beat up. So when are we going to see it? When are we going? And people don't want to hear it. 8.5 more years. So we had to come up with a contextual way that makes sense and allows us to tell stories. And so we've got 3 different kinds of juice, right? I've got Alberta juice, I've got MGPI juice, and I've got our own juice. I've got 3 levels of terroir. The MGPI juice just has our water in it.
Triple terroir.
The Alberta juice has 2 levels. It's got our water and our wood. And then our in-house has got triple terroir, our water, our wood, and our grain. And we think we'll be the first distillery in the world to claim triple terroir with all 3 elements coming off of the same field. I don't want to say for sure because I'm still investigating, but I think we're the only ones that can claim that. And so we can tell the story of our migration that we did Alberta, then we did MGPI, then we've got our own. We've got the 3 levels of terroir. And so here comes farm stock.
When you guys found the farm,
yes.
did you know that you had all those elements, or was it happenstance that you happened to
The
have
white
the
oak was so late to the game.
Right.
It was like, oh shit, look, that's a white oak tree.
Is that an oak tree?
Really?
So you fell
Okay.
backward into triple terroir.
We did. We totally. I would rather be lucky than good any day.
Yeah, all right.
We did. We fell into triple terroir. So this juice is crop 1, and there will be successive crops. And the first crop is 20% WhistlePig distillate between a year and 18 months old, and triple terroir.
So these are the first runs.
Yes,
basically.
it's 30 or 49% Alberta 5 to 6 year old, and the last 31% is MGPI 12 year old. The weighted age is about 6. And it was deliberately formulated so it's not a complete homogeneous whole. I wanted you to be able to taste the individual components, but in a delicious way. But I still want you to be able to say, "Yep, there's a little grassiness, and there's a little bit of hot rye. Yep, there's some of that spiciness from the WhistlePig oak barrels. Yep, there's some of that deep caramel and vanilla backbone that's so well known for our older ryes." I want you to be able to pick all of those components out. And so then in future crops, it will shift in favor of a larger and larger percentage successively of our product, of our in-house product. So 10 years from now, it'll be 100% our stuff. But so the crops are collectible. So each crop will be distinctly different. And they're clearly labeled. And for future, we will have a barrel program that will allow people to actually select their own percentages, and then they get to put their thumbprint on the back of the bottle.
Cool.
So it's kind of cool. It's really fun. If you've not seen the bottle, you should look at it. It's bottled in barn.
Bottled in
Bottled in
barn.
barn.
Yep.
Awesome.
Which is a fun homage. I've been getting teased because I really want to do a bottled in bond eventually because Colonel Taylor's my great granduncle.
Oh, wow.
And so in homage to him, I really eventually want to do a bottled in bond. But
We're just-
in the meantime, we're bottled in barn.
We had an interview yesterday with Bernie Lubbers,
Yeah.
who
Who has done a
on the
marvelous
Bottled and
job
Bond.
at bringing bottled in bond back.
Yeah, we did a whole exploration of the Bottled and Bond Act and talked a whole bunch about it. It's great.
Well, cheers. Congrats on
Yeah.
your first.
Cheers, yeah.
Thank you.
Your
All
first
right.
bottle of
The
WhistlePig,
WhistlePig juice. All right.
And thanks, David. This was fantastic.
Rare
And
treat.
y'all are among the first non-WhistlePig people in the state of New York to taste this.
All right.
All right.
More M's, please. More M's.
Yeah.
You know, you can always tell if there's a photograph of me and I'm tasting. You can always tell whether I'm really tasting or not. You know how? My eyes are closed. Yep. Apparently, there's a particular type of taster that when they taste, they sensory deprive.
Yeah, you want to shut out that
And
visual
so,
information.
and so, literally, if I'm really tasting, my eyes are always shut. So,
tasting, my mouth is around the entire glass.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, can
That's
we
a
have
different
you,
kind of tasting, my friends.
There's a lot of M's going on up here. I mean, there's this subtone. You know, they're probably going to have to filter out about half of the M's.
So,
Do y'all remember the cartoon character Quick Draw McGraw?
yeah.
How many of y'all are old enough to remember him?
Yeah.
Okay. So bonus points. Can anybody tell me the name of Quick Draw's dog?
Droopy?
Deputy Dog?
No.
Wait.
Nope.
Droopy?
I've asked
That's what I thought.
thousands and thousands of people this question. Nobody has ever correctly identified the
Who's
dog.
the dog?
His name is Snuffles.
Snuffles the dog.
Snuffles. But do you remember what happened when you threw him a dog biscuit? He would bite it and he would go, and he'd lift off the ground, and then he'd float back to the ground like a piece of paper.
What was in those dog biscuits,
Oh, I know.
man?
That was pretty potent stuff.
I want to
Same
find
thing in
some
the
of
Scooby
those.
snacks.
Yeah, it's the same. It's just like Scooby snacks. I think.
Yeah.
But I think it had the WhistlePig in it.
I get some of those Goomy bears you can get out in California.
But I'm amazed that nobody, in all of these years, I've been asking this question for 20 years, and I've never found anybody that could tell me the name of Snuffles.
Snuffles.
So can I just thought if anyone knows that would be my wife. So I just texted her and she replied, Snuffles?
Yes.
Hey.
And she grew up in Singapore, so she's not
Awesome.
Winner.
Excellent.
But a huge cartoon fan, apparently.
Yes. Excellent. First person. Tell her first. Thousands and thousands of people.
And so now we're going
She's the
we're
first
going
person.
to we're going to both ends of the WhistlePig spectrum with our next dram, right? This is
So
we
the
get
last
we get
one-
a treat on the new and now a treat on
Tradition.
Yeah.
So the last one we have for you here is Boss Hog, and just to give you a quick thumbnail, Boss Hog is a vintage product. Okay, the government won't let us call it a vintage. They say vintage is reserved for wine, and it would be a false and misleading statement to put a vintage claim on a spirit. And I go, how would that be false and misleading? And they go, well, it might lead people to think there was wine in the bottle and they would accidentally overconsume. I'm going, I think the American consumer is smarter
They're not
than you
that
think
stupid,
they are.
yeah.
But it doesn't matter. They said, tough, that's the rule. So we said, all right, so what are we going to call it? Well, it didn't take very long for somebody to go, well, it's Boss. It's the best thing we got. And it took like a microsecond to go from Boss to Boss Hog because there's piggy humor in everything we do. And so there's 5 tenets with Boss Hog. Number 1, it will always be single barrel. Number 2, it will always be barrel proof. Number 3, regardless of what the proof is, it will never burn the back of your throat. Does anybody remember the first round that we did in 2013? It's 135 proof, and it still didn't burn the back of your throat.
That's good stuff.
It was warm in the front of your mouth, but it did not burn the back of your throat. Number 4, it will be something distinctly unique from anything we've ever done. And number 5, it'll be stupendous. I'm not putting nice in a Boss Hog bottle.
Right.
And so if I can't live up to all 5 of those expectations, we just won't have a Boss Hog. We've only done 3 in our 7 years of history. I'm working on this year's. I just spent a lot of time tasting up at the farm this weekend, and I think we're going to have one this year.
Great.
More M's, please. But so this
We're
one,
huge fans of single barrel, high proof,
so
cast
this
strength
this
ryes.
little fellow here was partly having some fun. Okay, so I found it's a very small release. I found 30 barrels, batch number 624. 14 years old, and it had a massive caramel backbone. And I'm going, cool, this can stand a lot of play. And we went over to Speyside Cooperage and got hogsheads. So who can avoid the piggy humor and having a hogshead for WhistlePig, right?
Hogshead for the Boss Hog.
And so
I think Uncle Jesse would approve.
Because you guys are more knowledgeable, you'll recognize immediately that a hogshead means that it didn't have bourbon in it first. It had sherry in it first, right? So sherry first, Scotch second, WhistlePig third. And again, short-term finish. When you nose and taste this, The front end of it is all spicy rye. The back end of it is all Scotch.
Yeah, what malt was
And,
in this?
Pardon?
What malt was in this? Can you say?
This was Alberta.
Oh, okay.
This was Alberta rye. The
No,
Alberta
he was
distiller.
asking about
Well, the barrels.
Scotch.
The barrels.
Oh, you can figure it out. I don't know for sure, but it's Speyside. It was sherry first, then Scotch.
Right.
It's most likely another one, right? Okay.
Carolyn?
I do not know that. I cannot state that as categorical, but there you can surmise there's a likelihood
Sherry
that it was.
Speyside that a
Yeah.
lot of people have heard of.
Right.
There we go.
And would have enough barrels for us to get a handful of them to do this with. Okay, so that's the that is the theme today. Now, if you have a little water, make sure that you save a little bit of this because one of the fun things about it is that because of the Scotch element, it plays like Scotch, and so the water is going to open it up on the back end.
Well,
And the reason this works so well is because while the Scotch and rye are disparate tastes, that caramel backbone just holds it all together so that it becomes a unified whole.
This stuff is excellent. I mean, I think we would love to get some Boss Hog barrels. Obviously not available, but this is the kind of stuff that we really love here at BeastMasters Club. And it, like you were saying, high proof, barrel strength, but beautiful, not harsh, just really smooth. And whatever's going on with that sherry X Scotch finish, I don't think I've really ever had anything quite exactly like that.
There's never been anything like it. I mean, the only other brand in the world that's played with Scotch rye combination was when Johnny Walker tried to come out with a Johnny Walker that was aged in a rye barrel. And if you tasted it, it was kind of a discontinuity. It was kind of like, why?
Yeah.
And it just didn't fit. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of, This is a unified whole. I had so much fun with this. So my friend Simon Brookings, as the global brand ambassador for Lafroig, and he and I go back a couple of decades. And so when we first came out with this, I was demoing it at a Bartenders Guild meeting in Los Angeles. And there was a gal there that said, hey, I need to leave a little early. Please forgive me for leaving your seminar early, but I've got to catch a train back to San Diego because Simon is doing a tasting of his Kirchhoff products at 7 Grand in San Diego. And I go, before you leave, wait. And I packaged up a little bottle, and I just wrote on it, back at you, buddy, and sent it to him.
Nice. Turnabout's fair play.
It is. Turnabout is always
There you
fair
go.
play. And it was just so for us, the deal is this. The juice is really important. Making good, tasty juice that you can enjoy or that somebody can enjoy. They won't always be down your alley. Some of them you'll prefer more than others, but good, tasty juice always. The rest of it is fun. Let's have fun. This is not brain surgery. This is not rocket science. We're just making good, tasty products.
Amen.
Cheers. Well,
Amen.
thank you so
Cheers.
much, David.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. And thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an
Thanks very
honor.
much.
And does anybody else have any last questions while we're here? Yeah, you want to come up and ask for posterity? Please do. We got one more, then you can come up. Yeah, please.
I was just wondering about the 111.
Yes.
Was that like
Okay, so the 111 was interesting. It was our first allocated product. It was like a practice round before Boss Hog. And what we did is we took the 10-year, and after it was 10, we dumped it out of those barrels, and we put it back into another round of heavily charred 53-gallon barrels, and let it sit for an extra year. And And then we got binary with it. We bottled it at 111 proof. We wanted everybody to sell it at $111.11, and we were just getting silly with it. But
meta whiskey.
Whiskey Magazine selected that as their best rye whiskey in the world for 2011.
It's super hard to come by now.
It's really hard, but that was just practice round for us. And while we got the juice approximately right, we really screwed up the distribution horribly. But we learned a lot by it. And so by the time we did the first round of Boss Hog, it still wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better.
Yeah.
But so it was a good practice round for us, is what it was.
Now, will the vintages of the Boss Hog continue to go up in age, or are you going to go back to 12?
Not necessarily.
Or is it just
No, I can't let too much of the cat out of the bag, but I am working on one for this year, and it won't necessarily be older.
So stay tuned.
But it'll have a different finish than anything we've ever done.
all right? Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, Tim, you want to come? And then Jake, and then just wait your turn, sir.
So I don't have so much of a question, but I was born and raised in Middlebury down the street from you.
Oh, fun.
So first of all, I want to thank you very much for your perseverance with Vermont
Yeah.
and bringing such a fine product back to the
Thank
state.
you.
So this has been a wonderful experience, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it as much as I have. You were talking a little bit about marriages, and without getting into gimmicks and things of that nature, one of the things that Vermont, of course, is known for is maple syrup.
Yes.
And you have WhistlePig, which brings me to bacon.
Yes.
So it sounds like a wonderful marriage.
They do have maple syrup.
So and we have bacon. So we do have sugar maple trees on our property, and we do sugar them and age them in our rye barrels. Right now we're not selling it, but our distributors, most of our distributors, have it in inventory and use it as an incentive to get people to put cocktails on the menu.
Well, I've had it. Well, we got some.
We have a couple bottles. You got one for Tim,
and it's
right?
really good. I've put it on. Yeah,
It
if
is
you want some, we'll
killer.
do some.
Oh my God, it is unbelievably good syrup. In
Really
its own
tasty.
right, it's the best maple syrup I've ever had. But we also grow Mangalitsa and Kuni pigs. We got to have a little piggy humor here.
Hey,
so
yeah.
so the Kunis are the pets, and the Mangalistas are food. And we actually had one, the biggest pig I've ever seen. His name was Bacon, and
Good name for a
and
hog.
he was 700 pounds
Hey-o.
when we finally slaughtered him.
That's a big boy.
It's the biggest pig I've ever seen. And he was mean as a snake. I mean, he would try to eat you while you were feeding him.
Yeah.
But he did live up to his name. He made great bacon.
Should we do one last question?
All that
here?
mean spirit came right out in that
It really
pork
did.
belly.
Whiskey Warrior drag race Cahill.
Yeah.
Hi. Bill Simon. Is that
Bill Samuels?
Bill Simons? Yeah. What was the best prank you ever played at him while you were still there, or afterwards? Because you had mentioned before.
Afterwards,
and-
one of my
yeah.
favorite ones was fairly recently. I'd been in Louisville, and it was arranged for me to do an evening seminar with a group that was called Women Who Whiskey, and it was a paid seminar, and it was a hoot. I mean, it was a group of 35 or 40 ladies, and oh my God, they made me blush. But the guy who owns the liquor store is a guy named Chris Dombrowski, and I've known Chris for a long, long time. And after the seminar was over, he goes, Bill Samuels is going to be in here giving a seminar next Tuesday. And I, really? He goes, yeah. I go, are you up for some larceny? And he goes, do you have to ask? And I said, would you please get me every bottle of Maker's Mark you've got? I'm going to sign all of them. So that when Bill Samuels comes to do his seminar, he won't have a choice but to use bottles that have my signature on them. And just to make sure that he doesn't just turn the bottle backwards and ignore it, I'm going to put a shill in the audience. And partway through the seminar, if he hasn't said anything about it, the shill's going to say, who signed those bottles anyway? And just drop it on the table like a hand grenade. But I do have to say, Bill recovered nicely, because he was trying to hide it at first, but when it was brought out, he goes, well, that's my master distiller, Dave Pickerell. And as a matter of fact, I'm buying this bottle, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to have Kevin Smith and Greg Davis sign it, and that will be all the living master distillers from Maker's Mark. And I'm going, all right, touche. Cool. He won that round. But but I really enjoy whether it's pranking him or showing up in costume at things. So
What are your best costumes?
So the first, when I first got there, this is back when you still had to go to like Kinko's or something to do a video conference, and so we had this video conference, and I hate wearing a suit. I just hate them. I loathe wearing a suit and tie, but I was in one because I was told that's what one does at video conferences. So we're all sitting around the table and making sure we know how to operate the machinery and how to get the slides working right and everything. And Bill's not in the room. And I look over in the corner, and there's this big pile of linen. And I'm thinking, well, that was really tacky. They didn't clean up from the last video thing. And I'm looking, okay, it's not in camera angle, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. A few minutes later, in walks Bill, and he's got a shirt and tie but no coat on. I'm thinking he's probably like me. He hates it. He'll put it on right before we start. We get back. The next thing I know, I turn around. He's wearing the linen. He's dressed as the Pope. He's got the hat, the ephod, the Alpha and Omega collar clasp. The CFO went nuts. You can hear his hands doing this. We had to move the microphone because the CFO had a nervous tick. And he was a wreck. Years later, I was told that one of the people on the other end who had excused himself, the reason he excused himself was because he was about ready to wet himself with laughter and had to go leave and get himself recomposed. But so I realized, game on. So the next time we had a video conference just happened to be on Halloween. So I didn't ask anybody, no coordination or anything. I went out and got made up professionally as a vampire. I mean, I even had gum makeup on to turn my gums blue. I mean, I went all out. I looked like a bloodthirsty vampire. I had widow's peak and slick back hair and the cape and the whole deal. And I come striding in, and everybody else is there in their suits, and they look at me and they go, "What the hell?" And I go, "You guys obviously didn't get the message. I think I'm down." And they're going, "You are so busted, dude." I go, "Look, it's Halloween. We're supposed to do things like this." And about 10 seconds later, in walks Bill Samuels dressed as the Great Pumpkin. I'm going, "On you guys, I got this." And after the meeting was over, Bill and I literally were downtown Louisville. We got this pumpkin that's carved out with the SIV logo in the middle of it. I got it up under my arm. And he and I are walking down the street to go to a fancy restaurant to have lunch. People wouldn't even walk past us on the street. They saw us coming and they'd cross the street so they could avoid us. But
well played.
It's you got to have fun. I always quote Bill Samuels on things, and one of my favorite ones. Two of them that I'll say. The first one is you can't bore people into liking your products. You got to have fun. You got to be interesting. And the other is it's easier to give birth than it is to resurrect the dead. And he meant that in terms of it's easier to grow a brand new brand.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that at WhistlePig. It's a lot easier to give birth.
All right.
So Bill will always have a soft spot in my heart because he's, I got to sit at his feet and learn for 14 years.
Yeah. Well, thanks so
again,
much again, Dave.
Thank you.
Great.
Cheers.